All of that came out ultimately, mostly by my prodding. William Broad of the New York Times did us a favor. I hounded him to expose the Battelle Memorial Institute. So even in the New York Times, he came out with Clear Vision being the CIA operation by which the anthrax that was totally unique, just like this H1N1 is completely unique. I'm telling you, there's no possible way that it was anything but a laboratory creation, and any fool will know. How else could you possibly get an Asian chicken virus recombined with a Mexican swine pig virus, recombined with a dead corpse from 1918 Spanish flu virus, recombined with what's going on right now with a normal flu, into the population, have it infect 2 children initially in Southern California, living 100 miles apart, that never met each other. Then a couple days later, they never went to Mexico. Mexicans didn't come visit them. Suddenly you've got the same, totally unique, never before seen, extraordinary virus breaking out in Mexico.
Well, sir, what about foot and mouth in 2001? It pops up in over 30 locations from Scotland to Cornwall, from the south of England to the north in the same 2-day period. And there's laboratory people there. Part of Porton Down is part of a zoological bioterrorism drill. We said clearly they planted it. They used it to kill 4 million cows, 8 million sheep that didn't even have it, bring in biological tyranny and control. And then 2 years later, they admitted, okay, the government accidentally released it from Porton Down Bioweapons Lab. Then they killed Dr. David Kelly to shut him up about it.
Right. And then most of the public don't know. When I published the book, Death in the Air, Globalism, Terrorism, and Toxic Warfare, 3 months before 9/11, and I showed you that the Tyson Corporation was operating using biological weapons in order to literally conduct industrial espionage and sabotage. They were literally infecting the chickens in Asia with H1N1. That's the first time the world learned about H1N1.
We know the CIA over and over again would release bacteria, viruses, and insects, even in the 50s, in places like Guatemala.
Oh, absolutely.
That's declassified.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, what we've done is we've exposed the heart of the beast with hard, cold documents that really are compelling, and that we ask everybody to go to the fluscam.com website, read the affidavit, make copies of it. If you have people that can bring injunctions and or lawsuits against those who are perpetrating this fraud and literal genocide, it is definitely not a term that we're used sensationally. If you look up the word, what does genocide mean? And it's such a sad thing that we, in America, we don't want to talk about the genocide that's happening here.
Give people the definition.
The definition is, quote, the mass killing or enslaving of people for profit, politics, and or ideology, end quote, Webster's Dictionary. So this is what's going on. You've got all three. You've got, number one, you've got money being made by the drug industrialists. We're going to talk about, and like the affidavit shares with you and shows you, hard document proves the Rockefeller cartel from the partnership from New York City is engaged in a global cartel that is wielding the mass media.
All right, stay there. Stay there. We're going to come back. I'm going to sit back, go through your affidavit in detail. When I read your affidavit, it was all clicking because it was the same Rockefeller partnership with New York that controlled the Port Authority and the towers that leased it to Silverstein. And then when I got to the end of your affidavit, you made that point. So we were on the same page. As I was reading it last night, I knew what was going to be next because I knew the information. And that's when you know something's accurate, is when you can separately verify. The good old folks at New Silver Solution. And the website is supernaturalsilver.com. Supernaturalsilver.com. This is something that kills bacteria, viruses, you name it, well documented. They've got it down to a super small nano-sized particle. Supernaturalsilver.com. Check them out at Infowars.com. Supernaturalsilver.com. Regular Army and National Guard are running checkpoints with police dogs barking at women and children all over Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, ahead of the world's criminal rulers. The G20 arriving in 2 days. I'm sending a crew. Okay, Dr. Horowitz, continuing, sir, with the points you were making to me during the break. Let's get into your affidavit in detail, the proof, the facts. You've got the history of the Rockefellers. They're always involved in this. And then where we go from there. Go ahead.
So, again, the heart of the beast is in New York City. And the Rockefeller Trust is engaged with the world's most powerful man on Wall Street, and especially the media. The people that wield the media and the mass mind are heavily engaged in the trust that is the most powerful biotechnology trust in the world. It's really these are the people that literally make the markets for healthcare. They make and break markets. These are the people that are suppressing the alternative natural remedies, the Codex Alimentarius legislation. These are the people that have created the markets. Of course, you've seen the security market after 9/11 and all this terrorism. All this is how they operate to create the markets to advance their financial as well as political agendas. So who are they? Well, now they have some names. And in terms of the politicians that are involved, gee whiz, you've got obviously John Holdren, who's calling for depopulation through vaccinations in his early book, where he's working with Barack Obama. And so the question becomes, all right, you've been talking about the Council on Foreign Relations and those members of that. You've been talking about Henry Kissinger, the connections to Nelson Rockefeller. Well, here is, for the first time, really hard, cold documents that show the intimate relationships between Rockefeller cronies and literally this H1N1 swine flu fright, which is a complete fraud. So I can go, I mean, like you say, it's an extremely lengthy affidavit.
Boil down the basics of how you put this together, who the key players are.
Well, honestly, by the grace of the Creator, it all came together. The main players are, first of all, in the UK. So much of it is coming through Britain. You have to understand that most of the mainstream media, Cablevision, is Rupert Murdoch. People don't know, but we're now exposing. For example, Murdoch's mother, a 100-year-old lady, is intimately connected with the Queen of England. His daughter and his mother is actually still running right now the place where H1N1 swine flu vaccines are being tested right now on babies and children and pregnant women. And his daughter, likewise, is running this in Australia. So we have a lot of people in Australia right now, as the Australian government and the British government and the United States and Canada are advancing this genocide under the guise of public health and protection against H1N1. What you've got is media mogul Rupert Murdoch hideously engaged, intimately. His entire family is engaged in the vaccine development and research itself. That's a stunning revelation. Rupert Murdoch is co-director. He is a co-director. David Rockefeller founded the Partnership for New York City, which is this trust that's conducting genocide. Rupert Murdoch is a co-director of that. And when you start to research that, that's when everything started to unravel. If you start to go into Partnership for New York City and you see the biotechnology companies and the vaccine industrialists that are engaged with them, man, oh man, it's like the who's who of Wall Street and mainstream media, intimately engaged in this process of health care
So they're not
reform.
just the main advertisers, it's the owners of the media involved. You know, the Rockefeller Foundation pushed all the cancer virus research in the 20s and 30s. Back in 1 minute.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Before Dr. Horowitz leaves us in 30 minutes, he'll be back with us later this week with more information. Look at the cover of Newsweek, the case for killing Granny. And then it's this very sick story selling how it's a wonderful right to die. and how the government's keeping people from being able to die when that's what they want is to euthanize people. And then sickening article after article worshiping bankers and how they're like celebrities now because they've created tens of trillions in fiat and bought everything up. And the rest of this Newsweek is drug ads. I mean, it's one big incestuous, disgusting group of scum. Dr. Horowitz, continuing with your affidavit.
Yeah, so again, the British links. I mean, you've got to realize also when you do the history.
Dr. Horowitz, do we have you on speakerphone?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Alex. You know, the same thing when you start to look at the Partnership for the City of New York, the connection to the royalty of Europe. I mean, literally the organization was chartered by the British royalty. And so you begin to realize, wow, it's no accident that John Robertson, who's in the National Institute for Biological Standards and Control in the UK,